there we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. So as we begin, I'm going to ask, this is the second workshop for film and television production. So I am just going to ask a little check-in from everybody. So the check-in for you to add, maybe if you're listening for your whole class, or if you are a student listening in, is to add your name, your age, your pronouns, your high school in the chat, and what is a current event on your mind today, just to kind of get the conversation going. Thought that would be a little interesting considering. All right, so we're going to have somebody monitoring the chat for you, and just kind of slowly, as you guys start to arrive, just add that in the chat. Thank you. Just a quick reminder, my name is Jessica Just, and I also have my co-founder, Polo Munoz, on the call today. We're going to be working with you on your story ideas, scene ideas, and helping you prepare for your shoot day, where you'll be filming your scene regarding your topic. So we're going to kind of bring you full circle to help you think about your story concept today. And here's the agenda, so I can just kind of go through it. So you're going to go through with us your scene concept. We're going to use the scene planner that will help you kind of prepare for this filming session. And then we also want to kind of take you from when you write out this planner, how do you put this into a scene with actions, and then make it into a screenplay format, which you can follow as a director or an actor would. And then how would you film that using the tools that we would use if we were going to film it? So we need to talk a little bit about storyboard and shot list, which is the way that you basically plan out the shots that you're going to film with the corresponding parts of your script. Okay. And then last but not least, we'll take you through those templates that you have access to so that you will be all ready to go, hopefully, to film your scene with your crew, your determined crew. And if you have any other questions, you know, Polo and myself are available for you. If you have any more questions about the concept of your scene, or maybe it's just not quite making sense. So first, let's talk a little bit about the planning of your scene. So we're going to look at this scene planner and explain it a little bit better for you so you can get your scene concept going and really just kind of make sense of the task at hand, but then putting it into a visual format that you're able to film. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of pause it here. I'm seeing that we're starting to get some answers from our check-in, so that's great. I know you're present. And then I'm going to pull up the scene planner and see if I can share it, because we had a little issue with this sharing earlier, but I will try to do this for you. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna, thank you. Continue. Let's see if this works. Is everyone able to see this now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right. So for those of you on the call, or those of you listening at home, maybe you're watching this recording, the first step to tackling this challenge is to kind of put your thoughts all into one place. And there's a lot that we're asking you to put into one jam-packed scene. And mainly, it starts with your discovery question. So we have two to choose from, and that's why we put that at the top of your planner. So the first question that we offered you to answer is, how has the arts changed my life? The second question is, how can the arts change the lives of others? They're slightly different questions, but they are great for impact. So for a scene to convey this message, you yourself need to really understand your answer to either one of these questions. So that's why we really want you to kind of go through this planner, if you can, and answer this question, either one, whichever one speaks more to you. Maybe you want to tell others about yourself. So that would really be the first question. Or maybe you really want to tell others about a cause or something that you want to tackle, something that the world needs to know about that the arts can change. The second question may be for you. It's dependent on what speaks to you. So I'm going to pause and see if anyone would like to share if they have answered this question or if they have any questions about either of these questions. But as we start to get those questions coming into the chat, I'm going to slightly move on just so that we can start elaborating on this planner. Okay. But really, that's the first step, is to answer those questions. Okay. Then once you know which question you're going to answer, you're going to go to the next page. Now that you've answered those questions, you're going to try to isolate a moment from what you just retold. So I think for many, the first question can be very broad, like, how has the arts changed my life, right? You could start from when you were young and how you've discovered something about yourself all the way till now. And that's why it's a broader answer. But for this assignment, we are asking you to try to isolate a visual moment that you discovered that. So you go to the next part, and when you start thinking about the moment that you're going to capture in your scene, a really good tip is to think about a single location and a single time, because that's going to help you isolate that down. For instance, it could be location, casting room, right? A young Jessica is going in to audition for the first time. And everything that happens during that audition and everything that that girl learns is going to all happen in that one location. So it's a moment, but really it's all happening in one space, one location, one setting. Okay. And that's why we kind of want you to start transitioning in to a kind of a smaller moment that reflects the bigger story or is inspired by the bigger answer. Okay. So a moment or conversation that I feel would best depict my answer above, right? And if it's more about how the arts has changed the lives of others, or how the arts can change the lives of others, you may want to consider something where you've witnessed the arts changing the lives of an audience. Maybe it's an auditorium evening. That's my location. And you witness the audience just coming to life of a play that was directed by someone, right? And the whole scene is actually just on an audience member. It could just be someone sitting next to somebody else, and they start off really grumpy and upset. And then they are witnessing everything that they're watching. And then they turn to the person next to them, and slowly they have a conversation with the person next to them, and they start changing through the course of the scene, just from the beginning of the scene to the end of the scene. Okay. And that is all discovered as you answer the questions in this planner. Okay. You may not know exactly which direction you want to go, but in your broader answer, you're going to go to these questions and kind of see, oh yeah, like I have a really clear image of that moment in my memory. I'm going to go with that particular one. It may not work out. Like you may go through the planner and go, oh, I don't know the answer to that. So either you can, for instance, it takes place in the following location and time. You may not know like an exact location and time, so you're going to have to make a choice. And that's what's really important here, is the stronger your choices about your scene, the stronger the visualizations and the way other people relate to your scene will be. The main message I would like to convey in my moment scene is, okay, so heads up, you may have a message in mind, And that's excellent. We want you to have a message in mind. But sometimes when we go through the planning process and we're writing out our script, we tend to put the on the nose message in the text. So we would like to help you, if you share the scenes that you're working on with us, to not be so on the nose, but more in the subtext of the meaning of what someone says. So I'm really upset that it's raining today. That's very on the nose, right? Because it's like you're saying what you're feeling. But if you instead have somebody go, no, I don't feel like doing anything. No, I don't want to go out. No, the subtext is they're upset because it's raining. So all their plans got canceled. But you're doing it indirectly by giving the character reactions or verbs or dialogue that are all kind of reflective of the emotions that they're feeling in that moment. Okay.
When
So,
you start,
yes, go ahead, Mr. Polo.
one of the things that is important is that you write it. Just write out whatever you are feeling in that space, and just remember that it's going to be evolving, because in the evolution is going to happen with the words, with the vocabulary. So the simple sentence, you know, I couldn't stop staring at what I just saw. Nobody ever told me that this was an option. So in just in those two questions, I mean, just in those two sentences, you start bringing everyone into the consciousness of that moment. And the camera can be right in front of the person, or the camera could be looking at something that we still cannot see. But we're looking for it now because we're trying to figure out how do we connect to this person that's there. So, you know, in essence, what you want to do is create that impactful moment so that we can actually, or actually write that impactful moment so that we can actually create that scene. There's multiple camera angles that you can use in that moment, and those are the choices that you can make based on that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the most important thing. Don't think that the one thing that you can make, the biggest mistake that you'll make as a filmmaker, is that you think that it's in your head and you don't have to write it, because then you have nothing solid to anchor yourself to. And I've seen this a lot. I know what it is. I don't have to write it. And what happens is that you're in the moment that you have to film, and you don't have anything to follow. So you need to, there is really no option than to write that sentence, evolve it as it comes along, and that sentence will give you the emotional vocabulary that you're going to need so that you can shoot so that you can fill out the types of shots that you might want to shoot when you are in physical production, which is the next thing. So hopefully you've when we talked about this before, hopefully you have written something that you can actually execute, because anything that we do as filmmakers, we don't just do it to think about it. We actually do it because we are going to create something with it, you know, specifically a short film, a scene, whatever it is. So as you're looking through those elements that you need to fill out, really look at the emotional impact that sentence is having on you, because you are going to need to translate that into the visuals. And that's where the shots come in. When you're making those shots, do not try to make those shots on the day that you're actually going to film. That's going to be the biggest mistake that you'll make.
Yeah.
Make shots way before, have them already. You need to have a storyboard, but without the actual story itself, it's going to be difficult to connect the shots, even if you have beautiful shots done by, you know, a fantastic illustrator. So this is really what's key here. You need to write those words.
So the moral of the story is, the more you write down, the easier it's going to be on the production day, the actual day that you decide to film. And that's why we thought that this workshop would be very important to emphasize your prep, your production prep, all of the materials that you're going to need before you film. You don't want to show up at, say you book the auditorium at your school to film the scene you want to film, and you get there and you realize it's too dark. You should have gone there prior to the day you booked for it and scouted it, right? But you wouldn't know that you needed to scout it until you actually write the script and know exactly what you want to film. So that's why the preparation for the writing today is very important, and that you take your planning seriously. Because also, if you notice this question, I will need to research or interview the following to develop the message argument in my scene. There may be a really important prop that you need for your scene. And if you're thinking about it while you're filming, while you're organizing your crew, you're not going to be able to lead your crew to execute the way you need to. So remember, this is a challenge for a reason. It's something that you need to prepare for and do the proper work to get the wardrobe down, to get your props down, to get the right equipment that you're going to need. Like I mentioned before, you might need some lights. You're probably going to need some strong audio, because dialogue is going to be very important if you're isolating just a scene. And you definitely want that message to come across. So you're going to probably want to do some preparation with your actors to block out the scene, to rehearse it, to make sure that the performance is believable. And for them to have a believable performance, they need lines that they're going to be able to memorize. So doing this prep work, transitioning it to the script, which we're going to discuss next, is going to be very important for you in the production process. So in the planner, there is the before. So the before is really the place where maybe your head is kind of spiraling, like, I know this character really well. I know the person that's in the scene really well. I know this about them. I know this is in their history. I know they're shy. I know they're... This is where you would put that, the before. Everything that is in your head that you know about the scenario that needs to be there, but may not necessarily need to be in the scene that you shoot. But it needs to be there because as the screenwriter, you need to know that history inside and out, so that when you do the next part, which is the incident, that everything starts to happen or everything starts to change, that's the scene, the action that everything starts to change in. That's the little moment we're going to watch.
Yep.
But in order for that moment to be impactful, there needs to be a little tiny hint to who this character or who this person is in your scene, so that the audience goes, whoa, at the end of your scene, because they know how much the character has changed. Okay. Yep. So the key here is introduce the character so well visually. Maybe they are, they hold their body a certain way and they're very shy in the very beginning top of your scene. Okay. And then the inciting incident moment, what is it that like kind of just gets this person to change, or this moment? Now it's going to happen ridiculously fast because we are only doing it in a scene. So you do have to kind of surrender some reality, understand that it's not a full film. It is kind of just the beginning of the scene. There's this thing that happens in the middle of it that kind of shines light on your character, shines light on your message. And then by the end, you're going to find out that this character somehow has a revelation, or somehow there's a moment or something that changes for this main character. And that's why you want to kind of think about who that character is. What is the main flaw? What is the main problem with this character? Because that's going to give you that little hint of, oh, this is how I can make them change, right? How has the arts helped them? Or how can the arts make them change, right? So what's that flaw? Maybe the person is in the beginning, maybe they're not very understanding. Maybe they're a bully, right? And the arts in your scene transitions them to understanding. And that's kind of the point of view or the message, right? So I want the audience to see that happen. And that's how you can start to define what your message is. So this planning kind of helps you. It breaks the whole challenge down so that you're able to kind of picture it a little bit better for yourself. Okay.
If
Now,
if it
go ahead, Bella. Sorry.
okay. as we move along, here's the thing. If you find yourself that you write your story and it doesn't quite feel that it's there, there are three things generally that you need to look at. So usually the three challenges in creating a strong story, it falls, maybe there's something not quite there with the plot, and you got to think about that. Do the events make sense or to lead that?
Mhm.
Is the character not fully developed to the point that you're making choices based on the events rather than what the character would do? That's what you have to have, a very strong character development, because as the character does something, there's a consequence, and the character is going to do something again. And when the character does something different is when the change kind of happens, where they realize, oh, if I jump on the water again, I'm going to get wet. So I'm not going to jump on the water anymore. I'm going to try to walk around another way. And so at that moment, the character is making a different choice. But the question will be, well, why would the character still persist in jumping in the water? And then we go back to the character being a very strong swimmer. So we know that he's a strong swimmer or she's a strong swimmer. So they want to take that. They feel that that would be the best way for them to get to the place that they need to get to faster than going around. So if we know that about the character, then the choices make sense. And the other part of the story is that if something is still not connecting, it could be the structure. And stay to a simple structure. Beginning, middle, end is really a structure that really can help you in keeping a story very strong. So if you are struggling with your story, look at the story and see which part may not be developed properly. Is it the character that it's not clearly developed, that we don't really know why he would make choices? If the character is really happy all the time, why is the character sad now? And that's the situation you can
Yeah,
just
what is the flaw? If you make your character perfect, then it's very hard to show a change in the character. So you want to try to isolate that one thing, like we mentioned, that is connected to your message. What is the thing that the character is going to go through to change by the end of your scene? Okay. I want to touch on this really quickly. It's my secondary character. Very important. Because you're only doing a scene, you may want to have an additional character that can kind of be the opposition to or helps move along the action in your scene. So consider having that secondary character that the main character has a conversation with, or may have an interaction with, or something that allows your character to grow based on the interaction and reaction that they have with a secondary character. Okay. And this is there to kind of help you think that through and brainstorm it. And again, these are the elements that we were talking about: the conflict, or the main problem that's going to be in the middle of your scene, or that is presented, and then how your character kind of tries something out, and we see and reveals who this emotional character is through their actions, right? What they do, and then how they react. And that's what Polo was talking about, is how they overcome this conflict is really the revealing part we want to see, the moments in your scene. And then essentially, you have to come to a strong choice on this one, because a strong resolve, because your scene is going to end when the character is either going to exit the location, or the time is going to be up in that location and it just cuts to black. And that's something you have to understand is the nature of this challenge. It may not be a resolved ending at all. It may be left hanging and left for the audience to decide how this is going to end, because it's just a scene. It's a moment in the middle of events. It can have a strong resolve if you decide that. It can have a definitive end, but because it's just a scene, it may not definitively end. It may be lingering. So just be aware of that. It's okay. It's just you have to decide how to end it.
it's
Okay.
really about It's really about providing a transition toward the rest of the story that we're not going to see.
Right.
So in that moment of, you're doing the scene, how does the exit happen? But you have to give us a strong understanding of what might happen that we are not seeing. But it's not the end of the story, as Jessica's saying. It's just the end of that moment that transitions into something different. And there has to be a definite choice by your main character.
Mhm. So moving on, once you have this whole thing kind of mapped out, like you've got your thoughts on paper, the third part is writing that all in one paragraph, kind of like in one consolidated place. All right. Now it can be done as bullet points. That I would actually recommend bullet points, because when you look at your planner, it's got like probably a lot of research, some notes on it. It's got a lot of thoughts all kind of in this planner. My recommendation to you is to have that on one side, print it out, and then go to this document, the Write My Moment story, and consolidate it. First of all, you want to think about it in the present active, okay? Because we're starting to think as it's happening in front of us. All right. That's how movies generally are written, in the present active tense. Okay. Because the screenwriter wants the person who's reading it to visualize it as it's happening. Right. First thing you want to consider is your scene heading. I'm sure if you've written a scene before, or you've written a script before, you understand or have seen this. It's also known as a slug line. This is vital to the genesis of your script. You need to know, is my location for my scene that I'm going to film, is it inside or is it outside? So the interior, INT, is inside, and then EXT is exterior, outside. So you can pick, okay, one or the other. And when you work in this document, you can put INT because it's going to be interior. And we can go with the example earlier, auditorium, right? And this might be nighttime, because I am going to be showing people that this is an evening play. This is where my scene is going to take place. So interior auditorium night would be my scene heading. And then as you start writing your script, you would put what is happening. So the beginning of the scene, an audience is anticipating the play that's going to begin. All right, anxiously anticipating the play that is going to begin. J, and then I would put the age, and that's going back to this document. Okay, you go back and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, my main character's name is J. I can describe their personality, I can describe their age, I can give everybody kind of a picture of who this character is, and then go back and you would write that out. But if you don't quite know exactly how your scene is going to pan out, you can just kind of start writing out ideas. Like, I want to see an audience, then I want to focus on J, then I want to, and you can just kind of stream of consciousness write out, this happens in my scene, and then this is going to happen, and I need to have, I want to see that he is upset and crossing his arms. So you're sort of thinking visually too, right? So this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and then someone, and then someone might be the other character, like Mary, right? Crosses in front of him and knocks his drink on him, you know, like his soda and popcorn. You know, something that is starting off my action, starting off my conflict. And it doesn't have to be spell right, nothing. Just keep writing ideas down until you start to see what we call the beats, or the actions of the scene. This happens, then because that happens, cause and effect. Because that happens, then this happens. And you can always go back and edit. And I don't really know if I like that. Maybe I'll change it to Mary has her cell phone on and it is so bright that it is blocking Jay's view, something like that, right? And so now we've introduced the concept of this conflict between these two characters. And we're starting to see their personalities come out by the way maybe she's holding her phone, maybe she's taking selfies, maybe she's very self-absorbed. There's lots of places you can go, but you always want to refer back to your planner. Like, oh yeah, that's right. I made that decision about that character. And you go back and you're kind of going through the whole scene, and essentially you would decide how the conflict is resolved and what you want to see in the scene. So that's really the concept of your moment story writing, your planner in one summary. And once you have this kind of fleshed out by your beats, then we're going to take you over to the screenplay.
Yeah, before you go, so this is something to think about before you move on, Miss Jessica.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
look
stop
at
for a second.
this Mary blocks Jay's view. That actually leads to think about why is it what Jay needs to see so important to him, and the moments of conflict don't have to be, Marvel type conflicts where everybody gets into a fight, right? The whole idea there is that when you are doing something that seems minimal to you, the conflict can happen because what you are not seeing, what this person is not seeing, is really critical for him. And so that's when, an innocent moment where she might just be doing whatever she thinks she can do can become a real problem for the other people. And that's, if you are thinking about something that seems minute but it's impactful, look for that in your story. Look for that in your story, because that is the moment that all that emotional processing actually is tied to. It doesn't have to be, like I said, this huge action sequence. It's those little moments when somebody's struggling and they cannot put it past themselves first because the girl doesn't understand what's the big deal. I'm just taking selfies, I'm having fun because this is boring, whatever. But to Jay, it's a critical moment in whatever, for whatever reason, information that he's not getting that could change his life.
Sorry about, hold on, go back here. Okay, great. So we're just gonna quickly go through this so that it's on the recording. And if you're not quite familiar with how we're expecting your script to be formatted, this is gonna answer some questions for you. So we're gonna go through this really quick. All right, here we go.
You got ideas for a killer screenplay. You know the story cold. But sometimes the screenplay format can stifle your creativity. And you had some sort of guide. But why do we even need to format? We format because screenplays are written to be produced. Formatting correctly isn't stylistic. It's necessary for first ADs to break down your script into characters, props, costumes, etc. in software like Studio Binder. All scenes start with a scene heading, or slug line, to tell the reader where the action is happening. A slug line is a location followed by a time. Your location can be anywhere, from a specific place, to a general idea, to a totally real boarding school. Time is usually what time of day it is, like this, or that. And continuous if the action carries onward from the previous scene. And use flashbacks if you're writing for Westworld. The first part of a slug line states whether your location is inside or out. If your location is outside, it'd be an exterior and get the abbreviation ext. Slug lines can be both, as is often the case with moving vehicles. But every location needs action. Consider this scene from Spider-Man.
Pete?
How strange. There's nobody here.
But what would it look like on a screenplay? Did you imagine something like this? The key to successful action is to keep it visual and in the present tense. Leave interior thoughts to the novels. While there are no hard and fast rules for capitalization, there are a few guidelines. As a rule of thumb, you want to capitalize character names the first time they appear, sound effects and interjections, and important details, like a prop or a plot twist. Formatting dialogue is pretty straightforward.
Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
You have your character ID, followed by the words they utter. It's pretty simple. Throw an extension next to a character ID to tell us how the dialogue is heard. When a character speaks over the action, on a radio or walkie-talkie, when the characters speak off-screen, but we can't see them yet. You know when dialogue starts in the scene before it, like this?
So now that NASA can talk to me, they won't shut up. They want constant.
That's called pre-lap. It's marked just like any other extension. But if you want to show how a character says a line, you use a parenthetical. Going right under a character ID, a center justified parenthetical changes how characters speak. Like this.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Transitions.
Okay.
Put transitions right
Just so you know, transitions are when you go from scene to scene. And since this challenge is only just one scene, we're going to kind of skip over transitions and really just focus on the first part of this video. And I put some notes here on this particular video for you to remember for your screenplay. Remember, the font is Courier font 12. That's the size, that's the font. The reason being is when you type it in the correct format, as we're mentioning here, you can tell exactly how long your video is going to be, because generally in this format size and the right formatting, 1 page of script is the equivalent to 1 minute on screen. Also, your scene headings are very important because it grounds everybody who is going to be involved in your film. They know exactly, they can visualize the location, and it helps you plan because you can figure out, oh, I'm going to find a place that kind of looks like a classroom, or I'm going to find a place that looks like the audition room that I remember, or I'm going to find a car that I can borrow because that's where my moment happened. Okay. Just like they mentioned though, if you go into the car and then out of the car in the same scene, it's should be written INT/EXT because you're exiting during the same scene. So it can be written these ways as well. All right, I'm going to quickly exit out of this so I can go forward. Now, as we mentioned here, let me put this here. As I mentioned, you're going to kind of have your narrative version of your screenplay at first. You're going to have your story written in that document as maybe your beats or as a paragraph. But what we want it to end up looking like is the script on this other side here. So when we do that, things to remember, again, starting with your scene heading first, so you can get your scene heading, and then adding the action. So if you see this document with the paragraph, you're looking for California seems different from Mexico. Okay, that's a thought. So that can't really be visualized as an action, but you can show it visually. And then you're stuck indoors. So maybe the moment is, and that's what we ended up doing, you know, breakfast table. And actually there is a mistake on this script because it says exterior breakfast table, but it probably should be interior breakfast table day. All right. That was there to catch you if you were paying attention. And then also Jennifer is the is the main character, and she's staring out a window. She stares out the window. She sees her mom walk out, and she takes a sip from her coffee. Notice everything is described through actions in your script. Okay. This is crafting a moment from this paragraph. This is crafting the moment visually for the audience to picture what you see in your head. Okay. And then through dialogue and her actions, we start to see the story unfold. We see her fears and her triumphs and the things that she wants unfolding through the scene until the end, where she is now logging into her class online. So this was written during the pandemic. The student wanted to explore the fears of her first coming to this country, and then also the fact that her mom leaves during the day, and like, will her mom come back, and just many of the fears that she had. So this was something that she explored in this scene. Okay, again, the actions are going to become very important for you. Make sure you write those out from what you wrote in your planner.
Yeah,
And this is a way to kind of, I'm just going to leave this on here while we talk for a second, so you can kind of recap visually what we need you to do with your script.
the anchor that you want to take a look at is the emotion. And the one sentence that she says there really anchors everything. And that's why everything that you write has to be intentional. Is my mom gonna be okay? This is a teenager stuck at home that if the mom doesn't come back and the mom's okay, not okay, she may lose everything. Her home, her food, it's just her and her mom. So that's a real, that's a sentence that brings in all the emotions on how she's feeling. For your actor, a sentence like that is gold, because they can figure out their character, and they're going to, it goes from that, is my mom going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? To, am I going to be able to log into my class? So through all of that explanation, there are certain very emotional moments that you don't have to say anything about. And that's where your dialogue is so critical. Also, how is she going to say that? Is she thinking about that, or is she giving us are you giving us a visual? Remember, present, active. That is the main thing.
Yep. So, and again, this is another example just to really kind of, it's not as, the dialogue and the text is not as clear, so I apologize, but it's scene heading, interior, boys' bedroom, 1972 night. And then the action, just describe what we see just in that moment. What are we seeing at the top of the scene? And then the character, OS, because it's off screen. So we're hearing a voice off screen. For certain is death for the born, and certain is birth for the dead. Okay. So you're, and she's praying. So it's how it's being said and how we hear it. Parenthetical is how it's being said. The other describer is how it's being heard off screen. Okay. Sometimes it's not as necessary to describe everything. Sometimes it's better to allow your actor to come up with it. That's going to be on you and your actor. So you need to have a rehearsal. It's very important that once you get this script, you find your actor. Maybe you're going to do casting, or maybe you have someone in mind, or you yourself may act in it. But we do want you to start considering, like we said at the beginning of our first workshop, to find your crew, to know who's going to help you film this, because they need to see the script. They need to see what's in your head, what's the plan. And once you have this script, they may be able to help you do the next part, which is the storyboard and the shot list. We do want you to consider having a team if you can. And your actors will definitely appreciate having these lines so that they can start to visualize the concept, get the props that they need to put together. And also, it's going to be very helpful for you when you start thinking about, like, oh, I can't just shoot this all in wide. I have to do a close-up. I have to do a medium shot. Maybe I want a 2-shot, or maybe I want to have an insert shot. So we're going to talk a little bit more now about those prep materials. But I did want to cover screenplay format, since that is one of the main items that we are asking that you submit, is that script that you use and that your team is following when you're making your scene and when you're filming your scene. Okay.
And before we go, I know parentheticals are a good way to control the story, but be careful that you use too many of them. Then your actors are just following what you feel when you wrote it. And what you want to do, like Jessica said, is give your actors a little bit more freedom, but make sure that you have very well-defined characters so that what they're doing is connected to the story that you have, and they don't change your character completely. But allow the parentheticals to actually not don't allow the parentheticals to kind of shackle the capability of your actors.
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to share this screen. Okay, moving right along. Let's hopefully this loads. It's having a little bit of a lag. Second. So moving right along to this example. It's this example, this video example is not a video connected to the challenge, but it is for your understanding of the materials that we are asking you to produce for the challenge. So it's going to show you an opening scene of a film that was produced and shot by students. And then I'm going to break down that scene for you to show you the storyboard and the shot list that was produced or what was used to film that scene. Okay, so first we're going to watch this scene and then we'll break it down for you.
I know. And then our Christmas break was cool. I can't believe Grandma took us to go snowboarding. Grandma was cool, but snow was even cooler. It's the first time I've seen snow. After school, we should play soccer. No, I want to jump on a trampoline. Well, come on, Gabriel. Soccer's so much fun. But I like trampoline. We can jump all day. Oh, look, there's G. Let's go catch up with him.
Okay, so what we saw was basically each scene should have its own storyboard and shot list. But what we saw were very clear shots. Let me take you through them, okay? So what I'm demonstrating here is the actual shot list. I'm gonna put this over here so it's not in the way. The storyboard first, and then I'll show you how that corresponds to the shot list items that you're going to have. You have a template that looks kind of similar to this for your storyboard, and then also a shot list template that you have access to for this challenge. So this is the storyboard. So basically, how it was originally conceptualized, it didn't have obviously the shots from the scene, but the students drew in their vision. So imagine this could just be stick figures too. But for your visualization, we wanted to show you exactly what the angles were. The first shot that we recommend you film is called the master. This is standard. Any place you go, any production, any set. The reason is you want to establish your scene. You want to establish the location. So the masters generally is a wider shot, generally, and usually it contains the main characters of the scene so that you can see all the action that happens in the scene. And it establishes also the location and proximity that the two actors are to each other or multiple actors are to each other. It also is allowing you to kind of see the whole location and not feel like you're just like in a close-up the whole time, right? So it's your choice always as a director, as the creator of this video. You don't have to use the master, but the master is a really nice start. It's great for your actors to kind of practice because sometimes when you're further away from the actors in a wide, you don't necessarily pick up the sound the best, okay, unless you have them wirelessly mic'd, which I highly recommend. But you know, this is a wide shot. It's getting all of the action that's happening in the whole scene from start to finish. And then essentially, if for some reason in your close up or in your 2-shot, there was some kind of glitch or a blip or something happened, you always have the master to cut back to. So it's also great for something we call coverage, okay? So you want to make sure that you get that master shot. If anything and all else fails, you have the master. Now, what we are trying to see is you elevate your filmmaking skills. We want to see as many angles as you feel you need to get, because that shows mastery of your filmmaking technique, okay? And that's part of what you're going to be graded on, what we're going to be looking for. Your skills, your mastery, and how you set up your shots. Are your shots level? Notice how we're kind of seeing the horizontal lines here. They're very perpendicular. They look kind of like, they look very level, okay? Trying to see if there's one that was a little bit off. This one, shot 1B, the close-up on Atlai, is a little off because it was handheld. So again, you want to look and make sure that what you're creating is level and the framing is correct. So that's also a great point for your storyboard, because your storyboard can kind of help you determine, oh, did I get the frame right? Is that what I intended? Did I get all the shots that I need? You can kind of pre-see pre-visualize basically your scene with your storyboard. And that's what we want you to do prior to filming your scene, okay? Another shot that we highly recommend is the close-up, okay? So shot 1A in your scene would be close-up on your main actor. So in this case, it was John. And then the reverse close-up on the secondary character, which was Atlai, that was shot 1B. And then the last shot could be a reverse shot, because in this case, it was showing them exiting the scene. So that might be important to you for your scenes, but you could have an over the shoulder shot, or maybe you have a moving shot or a panning shot. Really, you can have as many of these shots as you want. We just ask that you pre-conceptualize them in your storyboard and you kind of break it down. So this is the scene 1, it's called the before. The production was the name of the production company that the team had come up with. Again, you want to put your name down because you prepared it. The set location, very important. That is actually the school sidewalk in this case. And the set location allows the rest of your team to kind of know, oh, we have to go to the school sidewalk to film this. So it's everything you can do to literally get your team on the same page you want to do. The script does that. The storyboard does that. And one last thing, we're going to go to the shot list. So the shot list is basically the storyboard, but now it's kind of like, I have to make sure I take notes on all of the shots, all of the times I say action and cut. So you want to make sure that you have shot 1, 1A, just like we had in our storyboard. But now this is going to be on a clipboard while you're filming to just make notes of which take do you feel, circle the best take. Which take do you feel was the best of this angle? And you're going to be doing your scene over and over and over again for this purpose. So your actors have to be very comfortable with their lines. And that is, again, why your script is so important, because when you have your lines, then doing different angles will match. If you're having your actors improv, then you're probably better off filming with multicam, multiple cameras, because if they say one line in the front shot or the wide master, and then they go to the close-up and they're saying a different line, that audio is probably not going to match. If you're using a mic, you could use that recorded mic, but also the reaction may not match with the close-up on the reverse of the other character. So you want to be very clear on what the lines are that they are saying. So that's where you would make those notes in your shots.
Yeah, I would encourage you to not do any improv until after you got the shots that you want, and if you have the time, so that the management of your time is going to be really critical. You should, if you rehearsed it enough and you have enough space, then you can have the kids do, or you have your team do at least 3 takes, but no more than 5 or 6, because then you're going to lose a lot of time. And that's going to be depending on whether your actors know the lines. That's what you want to rehearse them. So this prep will allow you to actually have the best the best production that you can have, and you can do different things when you're on set, but you have to have this really, really well developed so that you can have a great production day.
And one last thing I'd like to share before we close, just so everybody is able to see this and know that you have these resources available to you, is the screenplay template. And you also have available to you, it's being very slow, I'm so sorry. Let me share the screen with you. So
Yeah,
back to this.
the whole concept of doing film is that, of course, the story and the concept, but the idea of actually making it into a film is really preparing all these tools and really making sure you have control of the time when you're filming.
So I'm just going to kind of pop it up this way because it's taking quite a long time to load, but this essentially gives you kind of a starting point for your scene: interior, school day, character name, character name 2, and then any, like we talked about, the actions, writing out the actions that we're seeing in your scene. And then it gives you the template for writing your dialogue out and maybe some other actions, but you can customize this to your scene and your needs. Okay, so that's the screenplay template that's available to you. There's also the storyboard template that's popping up right now, and that's similar to what you saw earlier in the example. Again, you can actually go to the location, do a blocking session. You can take pictures of the, the master shot, the close-up shot, the wide shot, the over the shoulder shot, whatever shot you want. Just make sure you use some kind of storyboard. This is the template we're offering you, but prep your shots, okay? And then also, we want you to know that you have access to the shot list template that I shared with you as well, which gives you an idea of like, oh, I need to use this angle. I need to make sure I have this person. The subject is the person that's in the shot, and then the description of what's going on while you're doing that part of the scene. Close up on John, he's walking towards the entrance of the school. Okay. And that's really it. And then this would be for later when you're actually filming, you're going to be taking notes on the shots. Okay. So you're going to be working on your storyboard, your shot list, and your screenplay. And hopefully by the next time, our next workshop, we would like to see some rough copies or rough drafts of what you're working on, so that we can help you through the editing process and make sure that what you're submitting is up to par of what we're expecting to see. All right. So thank you all very much for this time, and hopefully we've answered a few more questions. I'm definitely welcoming opening this up if you have any other questions.